I thought I'd make a start on the tender, an easy beginning. It's mainly just polishing. Nothing special about it really, just an ordinary tender. 4 pipes, one for the injector, 2 for the mechanical pump because it needs a return, and the other one's for the hand pump, which is in the back. And it's operated in there. I don't know where the lever is that works it, but there's the little hand operated pump. The handle seems to be missing, but doesn't really matter. The hand operated brakes have got wooden blocks, which is what was fitted on the original, so they're just glued on. Now the reason before that I thought the whole lot was lock solid and wouldn't move is because this axle is actually seized and wouldn't turn round, and as they were tied together the whole lot didn't move. That's the neat little bypass tap for the mechanical pump. As you can see, I've got the smoke box door open. Trying to hold a light so you can see, and it does have some form of superheater, simple form, the tube in the top right there going back into the firebox and back again. As you can see, there's ash in the bottom there, and I'm going to leave that. Maybe one day, sometime in the future, somebody will open the door and realise that it was once a running engine and not just a mantelpiece job. I've pretty well stripped this side now. It's most of the bits that I can take off I've done so. Hardest part has been removing the little keep plates at the bottom of the axle boxes. Very small, and the bolts in them are 8BA, but unfortunately they've got reduced heads, and so they're 9BA, and I've only got this one little tiny spanner to undo them all. Well, it's at this stage I'm beginning to wish I'd never even started. Looking at the inside of the cab, the regulator here, very easy, simple movement, and that nut on the top there, that is actually hollow, and the regulator is a simple bobbin type, which self-seals with the pressure of the steam in the boiler. And all this does is, it's a little cam that lifts it off its seat. Unfortunately, when I was driving it, the bobbin got stuck diagonally, and when I was coming to a stop it didn't. And the quickest way out of the problem was to reach over the tender and lift up the back edge so the wheels weren't connecting with the rail, and then I could turn the reverser until eventually the wheels stopped rotating. But that was quite frightening. It was a bad design, so I hollowed out the nut and extended the length of the bobbin so it couldn't happen again. The usual connections there. This one's the blower that goes through the boiler. That one's to the injector, and this one to the whistle, which I took the trouble of making a little tiny steam pipe so that steam would come out of the dummy whistle at the top, but at the same time the steam went through and blew the proper one underneath. Not too clever design for the firebox door, because it fouls that nut, and when you open it, it's spring loaded and it drops. That tiny firehole door, it's a very difficult engine to drive. You've got a small firehole door and it needed firing quite regularly as you went round, and trying to balance a little tiny piece of coal on a little tiny shovel, it wasn't easy to drive. Nothing like driving my big 7 1/4. Everything else is normal in there, but I've got to take it all to bits. That's the little bobbin regulator. When I was finishing off the boiler, it was too late when I realised there was no bush available for the manifold to connect. So somehow I had to get steam through to all those gadgets on the back inside the cab. And the solution I came to was to make a banjo coupling here and take the steam out from around the safety valve. Yeah, one breakage I discovered. This is the oiler, and that connects on the top like so, and this bolt goes right through, and screwed into there, but it's sheared off. And the only way that could have sheared off, I think, is because it became work hardened. It must have been at the end of the stroke, and the flexing continuously sheared off the bolt, which appears to be brass, so I'll probably replace it with a steel one. I've stripped off most of the stuff off the underside so I could get the wheels off. I need to be able to get to the boiler bands to undo them so I can give them a polish. Unfortunately, the oil tank seems to have leaked its steam oil all over the inside of the frame. One side's a lot worse than the other. That's going to take some cleaning off. It's become very sticky over the years. You can see inside the firebox now and see the 2 superheaters. They're just solid lumps of copper on the end. I'm not going to take the whistle out or anything like that, it's not seen. I've just noticed a little snifter valve down there, completely hidden away. This is the injector unit, which is only partially seen, but needs to be cleaned. And you want a reasonable finish on the copper and the brass. And the easiest way to do that is the old Victorian method of salt and vinegar. 10 minutes in a tray with salt and vinegar, and the copper goes a nice pinky colour. The brass changes a little bit, but not very much. But when you dry it off and then rub it down with the finest steel wool, it comes up beautifully. Now, I didn't dismantle this one to clean it. I cleaned it as it is because I wanted to leave the tubing in their right settings so it's easy for me to put back together again afterwards. Half an hour job to clean it as it is. Now, the problem comes about keeping it looking like that when the model's finished. Well, you could lacquer it, but I doubt whether you do it with a paintbrush. You're going to miss pieces somewhere and then they will tarnish and then it'll look awful. If it's not going to be handled, the best way is to polish it with ordinary furniture polish. I use the spray-on type, spray it onto the cloth and then rub it well in everything. It doesn't matter where it goes. it's a model, doesn't matter if it bungs the holes up. And then wipe it all down, and that will stay like that for years, so long as it's not handled. Right, this is the manifold and the state of it. Really well and truly tarnished. And I'm just going to put it straighter as it is in the pickle. I'm not going to take anything off. I'm going to see if I can prop it up because it's not quite deep enough. Yeah, that's almost. But you can see it's changing colour. There we are, and I'll put it in the water. Well, there it is. I've cleaned it, dried it. You can see it's come out quite well. That's straight from the pickle and the wash, and it hasn't damaged the paint on there either. And so now I'll just give it a little rub over now with a bit of the steel wool and see if I can improve the rusty handle there. And go on to the next piece, which is still on the engine. A lot of the areas I can't really get to. I don't want to take them off. Upsets the setting and position of the tubes and so on, and I'll only end up by bending them. So as you can see, I'm painting them on, and this will soak overnight probably, and hopefully remove most of it. It's particularly good for areas like this little escutcheon round the portholes. They're already going quite well. A lot of people swear by citric acid. Personally, I find that too slow. It does work, of course. Horses for courses, I suppose. It's a personal thing, but I don't mind the smell of the salt and vinegar, which some people object to, but never mind, it's all right, you get used to it. There. I think that'll do for today, and I'm going to just leave that now and see what happens overnight. Earlier on I mentioned how difficult this engine was to drive. Well, actually I think it must have been inexperience on my part, because last Sunday I was one of the boiler testers at the beginning of the season, and most of the engines we tested were 5-inch. And when I look at the tiny firehole doors that they had, this one's enormous. So it must have been down to inexperience on my part. All that tarnished work, all nice and clean. I didn't clean the meter, the little gauge there. I left it as it was. It's already lacquered, and it wasn't too bad. The suspension is far too strong. Even if I lean heavily on it, it doesn't move. Much too strong. Well, it's finished. Quite a few hours work, but everything is clean now, and all the brass is polished, and it looks quite pretty. I repaired that broken piece. I had to drill out the brass bolt. It wasn't actually screwed in, it was soldered in, and I replaced it with a stainless steel one. I shall cover it all with a cloth now until I've made a cover, a proper acrylic case to go over the top. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching.